Okay. Let's talk about managing users and administrators. Users are easier to manage. Don't give them a login. Administrators, don't give them the root password. Actually, that's not a bad idea. Okay. I worked at a financial institution for several years. This is where I got to know SourceDirect because we had HP support for our products, and it just wasn't working out well. And so we chose SourceDirect as our provider and been really happy with them. But one of the things that we did in that environment, because it was so restrictive, was that we made sure nobody had the root password. Nobody. And in fact, the root password is changed every day to a random list. How do you find out what it was? Well, we had a special program. You had to know what the name of the program was. You had to answer a password. It went into an encrypted file. It would tell you what the password is for today. Tomorrow, it'll tell you another one, and so on. But we never used it because we did everything with sudo, S-U-D-O. This is just an absolute requirement for every system administrator that needs to have multiple system administrators. You need to have each user log in, do what they need to do, and go back out again. Sudo does that for you without the risk of doing something wrong. You now have it documented exactly what happened and logged. And you can also now control what they're able to do. If you want the administrator to only do LP commands, you can simply say, these are the commands that you're allowed to run, and that's all. Nothing else will work. So, some of the things that we're going to talk about. I talked about the dreaded 777 numbers. Well, there's also another dreaded number, the mark of the beast, 666, also just as bad in Unix. Kill -9, UMass 0, CDing like crazy, and so on. And so we'll talk a lot about each one of these. So my first hot button is the magic numbers. Okay. Unfortunately, a lot of sysadmins, but mostly, and I don't want to pick on DBAs, but for whatever reason, they seem to say, I don't know what's wrong, I get a permission denied, so I found out that I'm supposed to set everything in the system equal to 777. So that's what I do. How do I do that? I ran FTP and I tried to set UMask so that it would have 777 permissions, not understanding that 777 is the worst possible permission. It doesn't belong on any file, period. Now, I can put it on a directory such as /temp because everybody can log into /temp and do whatever. It's a free-fall out there. Okay, that's good. But other than that, 777 makes things worse because let's suppose that the file is supposed to be readable and trashable by everybody. 777 means it's also executable. So if you simply type the name of the file without saying VI in front of it, it'll try and run it. It's a data file. Yeah, that's why it's got these thousands of errors coming out on my screen. How do I stop it? Don't do that. It hurts when you do that. Stop doing that. 777 should not be assigned to a file that is not executable, and certainly not to a file that you want to retain the contents of. So, directories in temp, of our temp and temp could be 777 with the what we call sticky bit set, make it equal to 1777. What this does is it says that that particular directory requires that although normally anybody can delete anybody's file or rename it or move it wherever they want to, when you put in the 177 value, it says you have to be the owner of that file. And then you can move it. So that's fairly useful. Now, it's certainly possible that some particular application or third-party application or maybe something you got out of freeware on the internet requires that it be able to do various things with the temp directory without this permission required. So you have to set that with some idea that if there's a problem, solve the problem rather than changing it back to 777. This is a nice, safe permission. It pretty much guarantees that the users will be in charge of their files. But you also need to tell them the reason it's called temp is because it's going to disappear. Now, it may not disappear today, or tomorrow, or next week, but someday we're going to reboot the system or we're going to clean out temp because you've filled it up and we've got to do something. So don't rely on this as a storage place. It should only be there for temporary purposes, okay? Another thing to take a look at is to find any world writable directories. Every world writable directory is a possible problem. Every world writable file is a possible problem. So the way to do that is we use this find command. Now, I show find slash. We're going to talk about the slash in just a little bit. But we're going to look at first minus D, type D, which tells us to look at directories, minus F, which looks at files. And the minus 002 is a way of telling find, look for the 2-bit to be set. Seems kind of counterintuitive that I'm looking for the 2-bit when it says -002, but that's how it works. And when we find it, we want to run the ls command. When we run the ls command, for directories, always use D, which says just show me the directory, I don't want to see anything else. Because if you don't, it's going to show you the contents of the directory, which is not what you're looking for. You're looking for the directory itself. This will show you all the directories that are world writable, which means the contents of the directory cannot be trusted. Okay. Hot button number 2, kill -9. Everybody learns in Unix 101, kill -9 is how you kill processes. It is how you destroy databases. It is how you get a new job or lose the one you have. All you have to do is do a kill -9 in Oracle, and the database recovery will start, and somebody's going to ask, who do I blame for this? Okay. Kill -9 says it has, first off, has no effect on a program that is waiting for I/O. It's waiting for a network to finish. It's waiting for some I/O that's never going to finish. Cannot be killed. Because a kill is actually only a suggestion. Every single kill signal is a suggestion. The way it works is kill sets in the process table, there's a little list of kill signals, and it sets the number 9. When it sets the number 9, it says, okay, that's fine. When the process tries to execute the first instruction, whatever it is, it's sleeping and it now wakes up and it starts, it sees the 9 and that's it, it's done. You set a kill -1, you still kill -15. No matter what it is, it sets that number, and when the process starts to run, then it does whatever that signal says to do. Now, technically, the signal doesn't tell you what to do at all. It is as a result of some effect. For instance, kill -1 is the effect of hang up. When you hang up, signal 1 is sent to all the processes that were attached to that terminal. So if your program is smart, it says, hey, I just saw a kill -1. I'm going to terminate, but in order to do that, I'm going to flush all the information out of memory. I'm going to close all my files. I'm going to some into the log, a nice normal end of job. Good idea. How many programmers do that? I'm still looking. I found a few, but they're very small. Anyways, same thing with kill -2, kill -3. Kill -3 is kind of nice because you can kill a process and get a core file at the same time. That's a SIG abort, which is kind of interesting. Anyways, do not use kill -9. Use kill nothing. That is kill and process ID, or kill -15, which is the same thing as Control-C. Control-C, kill -15, or just kill, all the same thing. I want to terminate the program, and it'll get the program, give it as a kill signal, and it'll come to a nice normal end of job if it's written properly. Okay? Databases that are running and you do a kill -9, you're going to have database recovery. You may be going to a DB load or DB unload or a lot of repair because you have not given the process any time to terminate in a legal manner. That means that indexes are still open and records have been partially written in one part and not in another part and so on. So you do end up with a lot of problems. Hot button 3, UMask is still 0. Oh my goodness. Yeah, this is a problem because that's the way it comes out of the box. So HP didn't ship it correctly. I don't think it's still, as of today, 11/31 is still shipped correctly. It's got to be 022 minimum. I like to have 077 for any of the others. But most importantly, let's take a look at some of the things that may have been caused. Take a look at /dev. Take a look at the permissions that are out there. /dev contains device files. This is a link from you, the shell user or the programmer, to be able to talk to a device, whether it's a T2Y device, a tape, or a disk. If the permissions on /dev/dsk/C0T0D0, if that's 777, what can you do? You can instantly trash the disk. No permission necessary at all. I can write all over it, and that's the end of it. There's no fixing that. You must reinstall, especially if that happens to be your VG00 disk, your boot disk. So you don't want to have any device files. Never 666 for a device file. Never 777 for a device file. As you can imagine, what use is there for an executable device file? So you don't, this last digit here is incredibly important. Always leave it at 0 so that nobody can touch it. The other thing too is if somebody really wanted to read secret data, If they can read the raw disk, they may not be able to read the file system or the directory that the file is in. They don't have any permission, but if they can read the physical disk, you can start doing strings throughout the disk and eventually find some data that, hey, that looks like the payroll information. Oh, let me see if I can find out where the pointers are. You can decode things. It's painful, but you could decode things that you're not supposed to. So make sure that they are there. Raw disk volumes that are owned by the database. It's okay to have a disk file owned by Oracle or owned by Sybase. That's all right. But no read or write permissions for ordinary users that are not Sybase. Etsy. I've seen several people try to clean up Etsy and make it, I think what I was seeing, I think I saw one time 741 or some crazy permissions. Boy, a lot of things broke. 750 or 7004 directories that are going to be for system use only. At most 755, which means you can read the contents, but you can't change anything, and make sure it's owned by root. There is a nice little tool in HPUX called SWVerify. If you just simply run SWVerify, it's going to take an hour or two to run. It's going to go through every process, every item that was ever installed for HPUX using Software Distributor. And it's going to verify permissions, contents, where they're located, the quantity of the files, everything. And it's going to give you a nice long list of things that are wrong, at which point you can choose whether you want to fix them or not, which is really good. It's a good way to do it. If the system's not damaged too much, it's a quick way to rebuild an accidental oops, such as chmod -R. Remember I said those three commands, rm, mv, and cp are dangerous? chmod -R and chown -R are even more dangerous. Because within seconds, you're in the wrong directory and you've changed everything. I want to undo it all. Well, sorry, this isn't Windows. There's no recycle bin. You've messed it up big time, and it will not run at that point. So be careful with the -R in those commands. So here's an annoying habit. CDing to everything. I just mounted my CD-ROM, so I CD to CD-ROM, and I'm just doing a bunch of stuff, and then I go away. So somebody comes along and says, we got to change the CD. You mount. Sorry, it's busy. Who the heck's got it? fuser/CD-ROM. Nobody's using it. How come fuser doesn't work? Now, I've actually asked that question for about 12 or 14 years, as long as I've been working with HPUX. And you know what? No one wants to answer the question. Or the second question, which I asked kind of after I left HP. I knew it was better, but I asked it after. How come LSOF does work? LSOF, what's that? List open files. It didn't used to be supplied at all for HPUX. It was built independently as freeware. And then it finally got into the Internet Express, which is a collection of open source code which has been ported over to HPUX. You can download it from HP now, software.hp.com. So LSOF runs on several different platforms. It runs on AIX, runs on Sun, and so on. And it lists the open files. It does the job that fuser should. fuser can't see if you cd into something or if you've opened it in an unusual way or whatever. One way or another, fuser says nothing's wrong, and LSOF says, no, here's these processes that got it open. Then you can go and kill them. So LSOF, it's a mandatory, one of the 3 mandatory programs I think should be on every system. Second mandatory program, sudo, S-U-D-O, open source, not there by default. Be sure you get a copy of it. And then finally, rsync. If you're involved in transferring files, you're changing storage, you need to make a copy of all the files, and they're constantly changing, and you want to keep the remote side up to date. It's an incredibly powerful program. I have used that program to sync up, are you ready for this? 20 terabytes of files, or several billion files have been rsynced. It took 4 days for the first pass, okay? It then took a couple of hours for the second pass, and this is constantly changing. This is an active set of files that are constantly being updated. And then it got down to as little as, I think, about 8 minutes when no files were changed at all to complete almost 20 terabytes of data. Wow, that's very, very good. It's an incredibly good program for synchronizing data between file systems or between systems, such as a DR site. Great, great tool. So don't use CD/. Use a full path when you're talking to something. LL/CD-ROM/ whatever. Take a look at it that way rather than CDing in. CD into CD-ROM, get back out again, exit as quickly as possible. Don't leave your hooks into these mount points. Find slash, told you about it. I had a system at the response center that was running LSOF, which is a documentation tool that allows you to look up all the information. Now, with the internet so much easier to get to and constantly being updated, the need for LSOF sort of disappeared. It's called instant information, but it's still documentation on a CD. So the problem is I had 50 or 60 users that'd be on that and using it all the time. And I had CD-ROMs, I think it was 18 separate CD-ROM drives, all stacked up, all hooked up to this one system. And they all had different versions of LSOF for almost 2 years worth, I think. So it was great. You could just simply sign on, pick the CD, and look at the information online. You know, and that's when discs, you know, a really big disc was like a couple of gigabytes of space. Wow. So that was cool, except when somebody did a find slash. Where is slash? Well, it's at the top of the directory stack. What is included in it? Everything, including the NFS mount points, including the CD-ROM drives. So every time somebody did a slash, it says, you know, find is locked up. It's not doing anything. Oh, yeah, it is. Go take a look at it. It's busily looking at the CDs. Why is it doing that? Because you told it to do a stupid thing. A CD-ROM doesn't have your file. I know you lost your file. You stored it someplace and you can't remember where. But find slash is the worst thing to do you could ever imagine on a server. The server may have a couple of terabytes or even 50 terabytes of data, millions of files. It's going to take days to complete. Look where your files are probably going to be. If you lost your file, then you're going to look in your own home directory, find dot, your current location. You can look in /temp, or you can look in var temp. Those are the 3 places that you have that you can look at. Because you can't store anything in Etsy, so why look in slash? You can't store anything in SBIN, can't store anything in /opt, or /opt Oracle, or /opt application name. No, you're only allowed certain locations, so be smart about it. What I do is I typically change this and create a wrapper. It's a script that has the same name as find, it's called find, and it calls an executable called find.real. But it checks to see if there's a slash. If there's a slash there, it says, hold everything. You really made a big mistake, and let me explain why. And I give you the whole page of information explaining why don't do this. And then all of a sudden my problems disappear. I don't have these finds running for hours and hours at a time. So here's the wrapper script. So we have, here's where we copy the original find, that's the executable. So find.real is the real find command. This is my little script, look at $1. It's a very simplified way of doing it, but if the first parameter is a slash, that's probably wrong. So let's go ahead and capture that. And I'm very nice here. This is not allowed. Well, no, I really need to chastise the user to understand what they are actually doing. See, on a little workstation with a 2 gigabyte drive, it's no big deal. But on a real server, it's got 32 processors, 400 users, and terabytes of data. It's a big deal, and it's going to affect everybody. And now we save that little script as a user bin find, and whenever somebody types it, they get the error message. So, 3 can keep a secret if 2 are dead. Yeah, root login is always dangerous. As I mentioned, I was on a financial system where all of the root logins were constantly changed on the production machine. So we never used it. We always used sudo. And the advantage with sudo is that it's logged and it controls. So if you just use su minus, what do you control? Nothing. You know when somebody did it, but you don't know what they did. Whereas sudo, everything is logged. If you're not allowed to, that's logged. If you're allowed to, that's logged. Every single time you do a particular command, which is very, very useful. It means that you're still sitting as an ordinary user, most likely you're in your own home directory, and you're going to limit the amount of damage. You're not going to have a problem with that. Now, we do need to limit the amount of damage because of a very, very bad situation. Almost every Unix starts out this way, and that's root's home. Root's home is always in the wrong location if it's slash. Slash couldn't be more awful. And the reason is because that's the beginning of everything. And root is the most powerful user in the system. So when you do something, no matter how accidental, oh, I didn't mean to do that, the effects of the damage is catastrophic. So I log in and I want to clean out temp. Temp is full. I don't need any of the files out there. Okay? So I log in, cd/temp, rm minus RF star. And the phone starts to ring. Hello? The system's down. No, it isn't. I'm looking at it right now. I'm just removing some files. Ring, ring, ring. The phone's down. Pager goes off. Couple things happen. Number one, root's home is slash, okay? And because it's so busy in the sysadmin office, I did a CD temp and then I looked away and then I came back and I typed in RM. There actually was a little error message here. No such file or directory slash TEMP. Oh, so what happened? Nothing. We didn't do this. Where are we? Oops. This is a big oops. This is one that we do not want to make. It's the RM minus R star club. You don't want to be a member of that. You especially don't want to be a member of that if you are root in the slash directory, because you will be getting out your Ignite tapes. Okay. So what we do to fix that, let's get rid of the slash directory. We do that by doing a make dir, either slash root or slash home root. I prefer slash root. The only thing that should be in root's home directory are just a few reminder files, data files, a couple of experimental things, nothing really big. You want to do anything big, you put them in big places. var temp is a big place. Slash temp, not so big. Root, that's very restricted because it's the slash directory. You don't need to expand slash. As much as it says slash has got to be expanded, but it won't let me because it's got to be contiguous. That's correct, it's got to be contiguous and it doesn't have to be expanded. But it's full. Why is it full? I don't know, I just got to expand it. Well, we'll talk about some ways to figure out how it got full and why you want to do that. So we'll put slash root there. And the reason we put it slash root is because it'll be available in single user mode. If we put it in home root over there on the right-hand side, that will be not available when you boot up in single user mode, but not a problem because the shell comes up and says, hey, I'm looking for home root, but home root doesn't exist, so I'm going to default to slash. Okay, we're in single user mode, we're doing a couple of changes, fix a few things, maintenance is done, reboot, and we're back to normal again. So the choice is up to the system administrators. When you've done that, you need to move all your files out of slash. Now, how many are there? Well, it really shouldn't be very many, but we know .profile is out there, perhaps .exrc. If you've been running Elm or one of the tools, you might have a mail directory, M-A-I-L, so you want to move that to your root directory, and so on. And just do an ls on slash and make sure that there are no, everything that's out there starts with a D. So you have a directory only, and that's all that's out there. You'll probably almost always find a core file out there. I don't know what it is about installs, but it generates a core file. And so you get rid of that. But that's all it should be. No files stored in slash, period. All directories that are in slash are system directories and nothing else. And that's it. Or mount points. Now, you can have lots and lots of mount points, but those mount points are on other disks. They're not a part of the slash. And finally, just as good habit, a good sysadmin habit, if you need to edit the password file, always use VIPW. The reason for using VIPW is twofold. One, I'm lazy. I prefer 4 characters to VI space slash etc slash password. That's a lot of typing. Okay. Secondly, VIPW puts a lock file out there. So if somebody else types VIPW and says, sorry, you can't do that, somebody else is editing. 2 people editing the password file is a recipe for disaster. You're going to have some problems. You insert some lines and you're going to have some real problems. So always edit in cooperation with everybody else if you're going to edit the password file directly. Okay. Here's a good thing to do. We talked about locking out the root login. Okay, so you don't log in as root at all because you don't know what the password is. We still need a way to be able to restrict it even further, but we also want to restrict it so that we can at least get control in case we're in the computer room. I've gone into single user mode. I have to go in the computer room to type on the console, so I need to be able to log in that way. Secure TTY exists in a number of different flavors of Unix, so we have to put the word console in there. Do not put /dev/console. If you put /dev/console in there, what happens when you log in is it's going to say, take a look at the contents of Secure TTY. Put the letters /dev/ in front. Now, if you are on that device, everything's cool. If you're not on that device, not. What are you going to be on? /dev/console, no problem. If I put the word /dev console here, /dev/dev/console, ooh, It's not there because it's concatenated that dev on top of another dev, and it doesn't work. So be careful with secure TTY. If you want it really secure, simply put nothing in there. Echo quote, quote. Put a space in there. Put dummy. And as soon as you put that in there, nobody can log in on the console. That's really secure. And if nobody can log in as root, wow, now it's getting a little scary. Because sometimes you really need to log in as root. So be aware of the potential consequences and say, do I want to secure it this much? Okay. Consoles should be on either a serial server or a protected subnet. Now, all the HP boxes made in the last, well, ever since they started, have a serial console on them, RS-232. Probably don't remember that much. It had to do with modems and things. But RS-232 goes into a laptop. Oh, you know what? The laptops don't have a serial port on them anymore. Got to get a USB adapter to make it work. But that's where the standard console is. In the old days, there was actually a green screen and a keyboard and no mouse. And that was the console, a real terminal. Wow. They can't find them in there. I got a KVM. Where do I hook the KVM up? There's no place to hook up the KVM. This is not Linux. This is not a PC. It's a serial console. So you can put it on a serial server. That is, they have boxes. Rare10 makes these things, and a number of other companies, Cyclades. They're boxes that have a whole bunch of RS-232 ports in the back, and then a LAN connector on the side that accepts either SSH or Telnet or some other protocol. You log in, and then you pick the port you want to talk to, and it connects you up to that serial console. You can be remote. Ooh, that's a very cool thing to do. You can also, some of them have a serial connection for the incoming signal, so you could hook up to a modem. And it has its own modem security. So even if the network is down and you can't get in, you can still dial up to the modem and talk to not only the servers, but your firewalls, your routers, any special gateways, any equipment that requires a serial port in order to talk to it. Okay? Now, another thing I always like to do is if you have a LAN console, and that's all of the RP boxes and most of the boxes in the last about 10 years, have a separate console port. It's a LAN console, and it's attached to the serial port, and it's on a special card, either called GSP or MP, that management port. And that management port is a separate computer. It can talk to the big computer, but it can also work offline. It doesn't have to be running. This port is always on as long as the power is on. Good, but that LAN console has access to the firmware, and there are commands such as power off, or TC or RS, reset, or transfer of control, which will do a crash dump. Those are pretty powerful commands. It has very dumb security, very simple security. You can reset it, put it back to nothing, and it goes back to default password and login. So it's not a very secure port. If you use a LAN console, put it on a separate subnet. And that separate subnet would be called the diagnostic net. So here's the company net, and everybody's hooked off like this. But for the purpose of the LAN consoles, those go onto a closed network that has no router at all. How am I going to get to it? Well, one of these machines is our super secure maintenance system. And it has a LAN card connected to this subnet, and it's, of course, connected to the main network. If you know how to get into this and you have permission to get into this system, then you can talk to all these ports down here. I've done it two ways. I've done it with a Unix box, like a 2470 or a A500, just a little small server, and it just has two LAN connections on it. Or I've done it with a PC, and the PC has two LAN cards, one to talk to the main network, and then you use remote desktop to get to it. And then it has all of the consoles there available to it, and it can talk to that. And I have little putty sessions all set up, double click on it, and you're logged in, and you can talk to the console. It protects it because these need a lot of protection. You don't want to put a maintenance processor on the company LAN. We talked about sudo here. Won't go into the details. It is available off of software.hp.com. Resist the temptation to give everybody all equals all equals all, which is essentially says if you can log into using sudo, then you have every command available to you on all the systems. Not a good idea. Pick the things that you want users to use. You have a new sysadmin, don't give them all. Give them a few things. Maybe the LP commands, maybe something to do with changing CD-ROMs, mounting and unmounting them. But don't give them a umount, and that's it, and mount. Give them umount/CD-ROM, mount/CD-ROM. Actually specify, unless you type this parameter, I'm going to kick you out. So we limit the damage by giving them control over the parameters they're going to be using. Here's a really cool tool. Cat man minus k, or man minus k, has the ability to say, I want to look for, let's look for anything with SSH in it. Okay. Well, there's SSH, but there's probably some other commands that I need to look at. So if I say man minus k SSH, what it does is it looks for the string SSH anywhere in the one-liner description. So it's kind of like a little database. We take every single man page, read the one-liner, put it in here, and then do a simple grep. That's all it does is a simple grep. So we may not have the word SSH in here. It might have something like, well, these all do here. But it could be over here. It could have the word SSH in the description over here. It's just going to give you a quick search through all the man pages to find a specific item. Now, man minus k, when you first look at it, will say, the where is database does not exist. To create the where is database, you need to run this command, catman minus w. But the best thing to do when you're running cat minus w is to update the current man path value. And it may not be in cron, so make sure it's available. This is how you do it. One of the nice features of the shell command, this is a shell command, is that you can put a variable assignment on the same line as the command itself. So I'm taking and I'm setting the man path variable for the purpose of passing it to catman, and I'm getting it from this file. So if I update man path, the next time this runs, I get all the new man paths. They're all going to be indexed. And I run this every Sunday. That's what this is. This is at 3:06 in the morning and Sunday, because 0 is Sunday if you read the man for cron. And so it's going to run this. First time it runs, it's going to take an hour or two. Okay? Next time it runs, it just takes a few seconds, because it's just going to find the differences and update them. And then you see the example of man minus k. Okay. Any questions?